Okay, you're recording?
It's recording to the cloud
Yes,
and then.
okay.
Sally, did you get my?
Yep, it's on the drive. I got them ready here. Your two attachments? Oh,
Yeah, one is PDF and one is PowerPoint. You can.
got them. On it. I'm locked up or not today. We're getting that reverb again.
Looks like the in-person attendance is gonna be pretty sparse. I'm kind of hoping there's some people online here.
Tim's online, so I can't Bertie's. He'll be coming here in a sec.
You just might wanna, have your computer muted.
There's something. Right, how we can. Thanks for this.
Hi. Hey, lo and behold, it's Ken.
I know, here we
All
are.
right. Guys.
Isn't this lovely?
Beautiful day.
Hey, right?
Day.
Pretty good. Good to see you. How are you? That's no way. How are you? Okay. Yeah, it's bad. You all right?
Yeah, things are great,
Yeah.
Hey.
How are you?
more or less. More or less.
Okay, likewise.
Yeah.
How was the big trip? Give me the 5-word. Positive.
It was good. Good to see you. Hi.
How are you ladies doing?
Yeah, how are you?
Good, good. How's everything with you? Good.
Good.
Getting all the IT stuff figured out.
No,
Yeah, that's just the way it works, huh?
That's ridiculous.
How's it going?
Okay, hi. How you been? Good. Good to see you. Oh. John Davis, how are you? Good, okay. Yeah. All it is drinks.
Recording?
All right.
We're recording.
Okay. Closest thing to water.
The
we
power
can
screen,
spray.
is that what you're thinking?
Because it's clear.
It's weird, Doug.
What am I doing?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not catching you. Or belly skiing. I might be cross country skiing.
Are you scared?
I have been.
All right. So
Well, you'd
you
be
see
surprised.
a
I got you over 1 million birds.
document here that Russ wanted us to
Holy
share.
cow,
Quiet about the crap I do,
It's
but
two
yeah.
slides.
awesome.
For
You
this-
can go
I
with
started in
CMH.
92.
For this meeting?
For the IBC.
CMH, most of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are you sending it to-
10 Cheers, one.
Which email?
Tri-Cities.
Yeah,
Way to do it.
Okay.
Just CMH.
We have so many, I'm not
I
sure.
have a lot, but I'm just gonna go with this right.
Cause you get that, you get both sides of that loop, cause you can ski the Monashees.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now.
So,
Okay.
Monashees
Where it
and then,
was.
Kootenai.
There we go.
Can't remember the name of it.
so you've done all the lodges, it's good.
It's hard for me to open that up right now.
Many of them.
Well, I don't think we need.
In the good old days.
Yeah,
Do you still do it?
Now, you know, we got past 1 million vertical and then, you know what?
time,
Stopping
I
point.
did
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, these were, done.
Yeah, it's not
One
easy.
replaced.
I got to go do the model shoes like 1 year ago.
Yeah, good.
It was so fun.
You just can't get enough. You just go, what?
Oh my God, we had like a semi-private. So there was 12 of us in our group. 4 of us on the snow with the guide, I think it was. Maybe it was 10 of us total. 2 groups of 5, one house out there. And by like the 3rd day, everyone was tired.
Take it.
Everyone was tired,
Press done.
except for me and the guy who worked on it, he used the charger.
You better be all in.
And I just.
It wasn't MacArthur.
No, it wasn't the steamboat crew.
Okay. There's a few
And
charges in that.
so I was like, I'll take my snowboard, cause my snowboard, it's so much easier. And we did like. 35 miles.
The day. Yeah.
30
Yeah, I got one out of all those years. I got one pin. Ready for 35 and I went fishing.
Right. I think we're gonna go ahead and
That's
and
awesome.
get it started,
On that lake there.
online,
So we went out.
is it still, it's Tim Sullivan, hi Tim, but is there anybody else?
Aye.
So, we're happy to have some, Jackie join us, and I'm all for optimism, but I don't know, clogs with no socks. That's pretty optimistic. Yeah, I'm thinking, that's just me.
That this group's gonna be warm enough for that?
All right, so,
Okay. Yeah.
good.
And which.
It used to be written right here. I'm
Yeah.
sure how they'll handle it. I don't know what's thinking.
Would you made it up?
Yeah, but does anybody remember, did you get it?
Yeah.
Correct. It's assumed. Okay, so if you go one more slide, we'll look at the agenda.
So bad, what do you know?
No, we'll see what our. We'll see, our plus has a separate budget. It's
Okay.
But they've been using.
So we,
There might have a chance they could have a material list on that later.
this is how we're gonna go at it today. We're gonna start with the basin hydrology update. And, then we're gonna get a little background from Ken on the C9 summit that just happened in Forest Hill. There's some pretty interesting stuff to talk about in these last 2. So I want to be sure that we get there. We're a little bit late. So let's jump and can you go ahead and page down? Okay, so we said, last time that Rebecca had done such an amazing job, in the summer, or that it seemed like we ought to be giving a hydrology update every meeting. So the idea here is just elevation in Powell, how's that changing? Elevation in Mead, how's that changing? What does CRISPA look like in general? And then a snapshot of the rivers. So that's what we're doing here. This is the Lake Powell elevation graph, 3576.4 on the 11th, a couple days ago. That's down about 3.7 feet, which from September, so you kind of expect that. Still up about 4 feet since November. So the water year ends at the end of October, and we haven't got bureaus accounting yet, but remember from the 24-month study where they make those projections, that's what the yellow is sort of trying to indicate, that probable inflow, most probable should go up by about 10 feet in the coming water year. Okay, next one. This one is Mead. It is at 1,061, down about 2.7 feet from September. down about 3.9 feet since November of last year. So while Powell went up almost 4, mean went down about 4. If you remember, we put about 7.9 million acre feet into Powell, but they only enabled a release of about 7.5 million acre feet. So the very simple math is we're giving them their compact allocation, but mead continues to fall. So that's probably telling. You don't have to be a genius to figure out what that means. Most probable inflow, again, based on another release of about 7.5 million, probably decrease that elevation again by about 4 feet. Okay, all right, so now next. So the CRISPR facilities look like this. And what I thought we would do each 2-month period is tell how much the big ones had changed. So Flaming Gorge at 88%, down about a point. Blue Mesa at 63%, down 9%. I don't know exactly what happened there. Navajo, 65%, down 3, and Lake Powell at 39% full, down about a point. And you know, you can kind of expect that this time of year, I think, right? So I don't know. Does anybody feel? Is that where anybody? I mean, at 39% is not great, obviously, but other than that, I think, you know, that's kind of about what we would expect. Okay. So that's the teacup. Remember that we projected almost 8 million acre feet for this water year. Next year, a mid to release, so only 7.5 million. Same for, I'm sorry, that's this year, same for next year. So this is another nice little thing that 24-month study tells us. The 10-year average, rolling average of leaf area is 8.6 million acre feet. So we're still in real good shape from the compact compliance perspective. Okay, next. This is the, hi, Cal. Hi. This is the slide I'm not all that thrilled with, and I'm hoping somebody has a better idea. But here is your river snapshot. By the way, I think it was Andy Rossi's idea, being that it's the Yampa white green basin roundtable. Maybe we should talk about the Yampa, the white and the green. You know, just a thought. So anyway, here's the snapshot. Colorado River at 3370. These two are pretty close. That's Cisco, Utah. The Yampa was at 235 CFS. That's not great, 64.7% of average. That's at Maybell. White River at 383, which the White River kind of bounces up and down a little bit around its, you know, its daily bounce is a pretty interesting one, but all of them for the last 4 or 5, well, for the last week or two have been right around the average. And then the green, also at 63.3%, which you probably expect since the Yampa and the other tributaries are a little bit lower. So that's just kind of almost not very useful. Here's where we are in one day. What do you think about it? Kent, go ahead.
I don't think it matters this time of year. Cause it's like the snapshots today over 30 years, right? What happened today, 30
Yeah.
years, past 30 years?
Yeah,
This time of year is so impacted by rain showers. And
Yeah.
not like, if that was June 15th, I'd be scared.
yeah,
Does that make sense?
yeah. So
It fluctuates a lot
yeah,
because of rain or snow events.
and it's so low that a little bit makes a big percentage change.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, we can spend a lot of time on this and we just want a picture, but what would be better? Like some kind of, maybe just 4 annual graphs or graphs to year to date, this is what it, how it has kind of changed year to date. Maybe, I don't
And
know.
water production for the whole water year.
Yeah, on the graphic that. Still pull water right now, put it on there, as long as it's not freezing, right? So
Yeah.
that they can get a little bit of grow up.
So you think a year over year comparison would be better, Jackie, than just, this is what we did this year? I kind of think you're right. I think a snapshot of this is. Well, let's think about that. Rebecca's gonna work on this with me
Yeah.
and
We can adjust as we go along, but I think maybe one of those graphs that kind of shows like stream flow for
Yep.
current compared to maybe like a high year, like we could put in 2024, 2023, compared to a low year and an average, and just kind of see where we're falling.
okay,
Maybe that, I think it's what Jackie.
would that scratch it?
Cause this is from today.
Yeah, most of them are today or
Today.
yesterday.
Yes, this is 26 water year in.
Yeah, it's,
Beginning, this is the beginning of the year.
But it's also a snapshot of today.
yeah,
Do you, what's the goal of showing this? Is just like, how are we doing
yeah.
in the
Yeah.
hydrologic?
Right, the
cycle?
whole thing, the whole idea, Jackie, was just, so all the roundtable members, you know, each meeting at least have a snapshot. And, you know, we hope not to dive very deep each, because we don't have a lot of time in the meeting, but just, you know, here's what the reservoirs look like. Here's what Crispa as a whole looks like, and and you know, maybe all of that, the sidebar stuff that comes from the 24-month study, maybe we need to curtail a little bit there. And just say, this is what the elevation is now, this is what it was the last time we talked.
Right,
And, you know, you know me, I'm famous for the 50-cent answer to the nickel question. So, you know, maybe need to go into a lot more detail, but I do think the river snapshot, this isn't that helpful. And so I think maybe, I think Rebecca's probably got some ideas, so it'll be good. Steve, did you have an idea?
Well, I'm just saying that, you know, the green numbers all based on reservoir operations of planning board, so it's actually immaterial.
Yeah,
I mean, they're gonna do what they do.
yeah,
Year over year would be way more telling there.
yeah, okay, all right, we're working on that. Okay, we're gonna talk real quick about C9 and one of the main topics from C9, so I'm gonna hand con over to Ken.
Oh, we're jumping to C9, okay.
It's well organized, except for the tours. Or tour buses.
Yeah, thanks to all of you that went to C9. CWCB continues to, see real value in working closer with the roundtables. And there was a good showing this year. This is down in Crested Butte. First day, we had tours set up for, three different activities in the Gunnison Valley. I went on the ag tour. Snafu, they had 6 buses ordered. 1 bus finally showed up an hour late. So the tour was a little bit herky jerky, but we were just real late getting back. We still did everything that we were supposed to do. And everybody else just kind of used their own cars. Good dinner that night. Good chance to interact with everybody, a big social hour. If you've never been to that Arts Pavilion in Crested Butte, that's a pretty neat facility. But it's kind of broken up in 3 different levels, and it was not the easiest to navigate. I'm not sure we'll do that again, but it was a really unique site and I thought it worked really pretty well considering the size of the group. But as we continue to get more people to attend C9, like hopefully next year it'll be 2 full days. There's still an opportunity, I think, to put a little more emphasis on the work, like Jackie did a real good presentation, just talking about what boards have done differently in different basins. And
we really kind of scratched the surface of that, because 1 hour is not really enough time to really, there were lots and lots of questions, and so that was a good presentation I think we can build on. And then the main agenda.
Yeah.
Was sort of telling about where we were going.
Hey, Ken.
Yeah.
Before you get to that, could
Sure.
you just say a little bit more about that wonderful film?
Yeah, what was it called? Marisol, thank you. Yeah, it was an amazing, and we can get that movie at once, what, about 40
I'd
minutes?
asked about it, I hope we can follow up on that.
Yeah, it's down it's down around Pueblo,
Right,
and it's about the agricultural community and the impacts that have happened through just over time and the drought. You know, the theme here is really clearly drought resilience. That, you know, I'll digress for a moment. If there's a really interesting article that came out that's in the Colorado Sun, if you haven't had a chance to see it yet, but it just talks about some research projects. One of them was UCLA, but talking about the fact that we have less moisture and why. Is it because it's not raining as much, or are we evaporating more because of the increased temperature? We know that our average temperature has gone up about 2.3, 2.5 degrees up here in Northwest Colorado. So it came back almost a 2-to-1. The disparity in precipitation, or certainly in water available for use in the basin, is more to do with evaporation and less to do with actual precipitation. So I'm kind of giving you a 1-minute version of a whole article, but if you haven't had a chance to read it, please do. Back to so drought resiliency is this overarching theme. And so what are we going to try to do about it? One of the first presentations was, I forgot, I have one note here. We went to Kathleen Curry's operation, which is a really interesting ag operation. And there's been a lot of talk, you know, we got all up in the air about this article that we saw about how Colorado is disproportionately using their amount of water, because in a free use, our constitution allows that if there's water available in the river, then you can use it as long as you're under administration. Well, they estimated that it was close to 87,000 acre-feet of water now. And that even though a lot of that goes back in return flow later in the season, it was still a number big enough that it's not going away. And Kathleen was actually quoted in an article about this, saying, this is really important to the ag operations, because we can't control the timing of the water. When it comes, we've got to use as much as we can, because we have a whole bunch of hay. You know, I think we were standing there looking at what, 4,000 acres of hay meadows, is one giant hay meadow. So that was the tour. Thriving Watershed was our first big presentation, just talking about the balance between environmental recreation and forest and watershed health. That's something that the Headwaters group is working on. I believe there's also probably got a forest health project going on in the White River, and we probably need to spend more time on that here in the near future. The next big session was moderated by Robert Cicada, who's the new water policy advisor for the Department of Ag, and just talking about ag's best future. And this is another one of those key themes that we're going to be asked to help work on solutions that are appropriate for our basin that pertain to how can we make ag more successful, more financially viable, but at the same time, finding a way to use less water, because we're just gonna have less water. And, you know, evidence in Jeff's article about natural curtailment. You know, we sure hope that changes, but we're in the midst of a 1,000-year drought, and doesn't look too good for it to go away right away. We then did some breakout sessions on drought resilience, which was the first time we've done that, and that was really interesting. And they had it pretty tightly scripted. It would have been nice to have had a little more time, because there were great conversations that took place, but it was a little quicker. Again, to my point, we probably really give the fair credit to everything that we tried to accomplish there. We needed just a little bit more time. The afternoon started with some concurrent sessions. One on the one that I mentioned with Jackie and a couple of other chairs, former chairs from roundtable talking about best management practices for the roundtables. There was another one on our next generation in water and water leaders, and the third one was on turf replacement. Not a big deal to us, but spending a lot of time on that and on the Front Range. Better conversations about water policy. That was a pretty edgy, that was the edgiest session that we had. Because one of the people on the stage, they asked him a question, he goes, I really don't want to talk about that. I want to know why we're not talking about water policy. And which would really make the staff feel uneasy, but, I think there's consistently more and more of a drumbeat about, it's okay for us to have these conversations and communicate back and forth with CWCB and the board. Maybe Jackie has a perspective she wants to share there, but I think more and more the IBCC especially wants to have those conversations and include the roundtables. So you can sort of expect to hear more of an opportunity next year to talk about several of these key topics about forest health, about ag, making ag successful in the future. And then the one that is kind of the no-brainer that I'll show you a slide here later is on measurements, making sure we collect more data and that we that we work with ASO and CHASM, the Colorado Airborne Snow Measurement Collaborative here in the state, and USGS gauging and soil moisture information. And we need to also go ahead and schedule something with Dave Kanzer and have he come in and talk to us about the weather modification program that the state of Colorado supports. We're a candidate for that. So we should at least have the discussion, and if we don't want to do it, we don't want to do it, but we should at least have them in and hear what they have to say. Jason Holman came in, he's the new state engineer, he gave us a presentation. And then the mighty Colorado, so we had Amy and Becky. Lorelei was there from the Native Americans, and then Gene Shawcroft was there, he's the UCRC representative, Upper Colorado River Commission's representative from Utah. And he has really come a long way. I mean, he sat right between Becky and Amy, and he's just like, we're all on the same page. So I think the work that our delegation is doing at the UCRC and with all the river negotiations seems to be really pretty darn effective. And we're definitely in a leadership position with the upper basin states. And we still have got a fair distance between the upper and lower basin yet to resolve, and not a whole lot of time, but it's encouraging to see that we're making some progress there. So that's sort of where the C9 was. For those of you that didn't go, I hope next year you can. It may be a little more easily accessible because Crested Butte is not real close to anything except Gunnison. So what else do you want me to talk about?
Did you want to spend any more time on that right now, or do you wanna, it's kind of your call?
How are we doing on time?
We're gonna be okay if you can do that in 5 minutes.
The forest health and wildfire readiness part. Forest health and wildfire readiness, the Colorado Water Conservation Board has made and Chris Sturms has a pot of money that they've made available to develop wildfire ready watershed plans. And there's a bunch of them around the state, Jackie. I don't know how many there are, but most of the state has at least something going on. I think, Kelly, do you guys have one going on in the White River?
So as far as the,
Wildfire Ready Watershed Grant?
no,
And-
we chose not to do that grant.
You chose not to do
We're
that?
doing something similar, but not that.
Okay, and the Headwaters Group we've received about a little over $500,000 to do that. And then we're combining that with a Water Smart grant to help fund the main planning effort for this Headwaters Group between here in Steamboat and all the way up through Wyoming, all the way up Muddy Creek to the Continental Divide. So we will continue to work on that plan development. But there's a huge opportunity here to, do coordinated work activities. And there's so many different funding sources available today. I'm not sure if that's how sustainable that might be in the new administration, but at least for the time being, there is still quite a bit of money available. And
we're trying to take advantage of that with the Headwaters group. And you look at a menu that is all the above, you know, what can we do? You know, obviously, any work that we can do in the headwaters, like being really good little beavers and trying to slow the runoff down. And build a large, lush riparian habitat along the very headwaters that, especially with combined with some thinning and forest, standing dead and other removal along the borders, these become really pretty effective fire breaks. There's a lot of work being done with prescribed burns. It's really dangerous for the Forest Service to do because they're in such a tenuous spot with their liability. But it is an initiative that we're seeing in more and more states. There's a really aggressive prescribed burn program going on in Montana. And I know I've heard about another big one that's down in both New Mexico and Colorado. So you've got that kind of work being done. Obviously, you know, there's places where it's really important to remove the standing dead and work on just trying to make our forest more usable, more accessible. More, you know, you used to be able to walk and ride through a lot of these forests. There's a lot of places now that's just not really possible. Mastication is another really important tool that goes in and takes, you know, the shrubs and old stands of timber that are really kind of at the end of their age cycle, and you take that and you chew it all up. And this equipment, and it leaves this big layer of mulch. And then you come back a year or two later, and you have a new generation of vegetation that's great for riparian habitat. It's great for wildlife habitat. It's a great carbon sink. It helps accomplish a number of different goals. So there's a whole bunch of different strategies that are available to help promote forest health and being ready for the wildfires. We're gonna do a presentation for the Routt County Wildfire Mitigation Council on Friday as part of their, they do two seminars a year. And we'll talk a little bit about the work that we're doing with the Headwaters group, trying to integrate in with the work that they're doing. You know, trying to make sure, like we do here with the roundtable, trying to bring everybody to the table. So that Jeff and I know what we're doing, and same thing with Steve and I, and we're not working in silos when we could be collaborating and working more effectively together. So I'd love to come in sometime and spend a little more time with you to talk about the Headwaters project. It's pretty interesting. That's about all I really need to say right now, Jeff, unless somebody has a question. I see Charlie has a hand.
So I was just at the White River Forestry Group's meeting this morning.
Oh, good.
And I mean, lots of good progress is being made, but the US Forest Service has given us total heads up. I mean, they overspent their budget, their personnel budget by some odd millions or billions last year. So they are in just the not the White River drainage, but the whole White River National Forest. They're down 17 people and they have to go down 20 more people this year, and they will not be hiring any summer help. Basically it's a hiring freeze. They're down for the count. So that's really going to be hard on all of our projects.
Yeah,
Because we're talking about NEPA and
Yeah.
we've got a grant to do some, you know, get NEPA done, third party NEPA, but you still have to have some Forest Service help. And they say they're not even gonna have that to be able to help you do the third party stuff. So it's gonna get more difficult.
So does,
Sorry for the bad news.
this topic, is anybody better positioned than me to say what the Big River Committee ought to be doing about this? Every time we talk about forest health and wildfire readiness, I think it's a pretty great, okay thing, but I'm not sure it's any of my business. Should the Big River Committee be contemplating, should we be thinking about how to weigh in or what to do? Or should we maybe our best thing is to let the headwaters of Colorado come in and give us a talk so we can understand.
Well, I mean, what Cali's doing also.
Pat,
I would just say updates from what is happening ever so often, but it doesn't have to be real frequent. I mean, they're doing what they're doing, but it'd be nice to keep people in the loop, but
Okay.
that's what I.
cause you know, Pat O'Toole, this was his main thing and he always used to say, well, just come up to the ranch, Jeff, just come on up. And then you'll get it. And I know I'm thick. I know I don't get it. So speaking of the C9 though, and the state engineers talk,
Yeah, what did I forget?
wh-
Go ahead.
what's his name?
Jason Ullman.
Yeah, when you see this guy and you see his presentation and his style of talking and everything, and you can really distinguish him from Kevin Ryan. He's taller. That's it. Jackie, could there be a more Kevin Ryan than that guy if he wasn't taller?
I think they have differences, but I'm not in the presentation of Colorado River issues. Is
Yeah,
that what you're saying?
yeah, maybe that
They're
wasn't
holding the
a
same
good-
line.
benchmark to judge the guy.
I think it's steeped in Attorney General advice.
Yeah, if you closed your eyes, it was Kevin up there talking. That's how I saw it.
That's the perspective of the.
Yeah, anyway, okay. So let's talk about, the post 2026 negotiations. You're gonna hear a bit from Amy tonight at the roundtable, but we have a little bit more time to dig in here. So there's a couple things that I think are pretty cool that are happening. You remember there was the two proposals from the upper division and the lower. And the USBR pulled back from the supplemental environmental impact statement and analyzed both of those alternatives. They modeled them. And it turns out that our proposal in the upper basin performs better. So that's really good news in terms of going forward. And can everybody kind of remember those? Probably not. I know I had to go back and, well, anyway, at a high level, we had a proposal for PAL operations and meat operations. A couple of key things about that, we wanted to look at volume at the 1st of October and then make release decisions for a year in advance based on that and some hydrology. So that would have shaved off a little bit of the up and down. Those releases, except for very full, always kind of limited from PAL, always kind of limited it to kind of the compact obligation. So it resulted in some meat releases did result in some lower division cuts. Their proposal was different. You kind of remember that they wanted not just to look at the volume of meat and cow, but to look at system volume. They wanted to account for all of the water in CRISPA. So Navajo, Blue Mesa, and Flaming Gorge, they wanted to add that in and say, okay, our releases are going to be based on everything, not just what's in PAL and me. That was kind of a sticking point. The big thing for me was that, and it's pretty close to where we are. Remember, PAL was at 39%. When that tier fell from 38 to 23%, above that, they said, okay, we'll take 1.5 million acre feet in cuts, which not coincidentally equates to evaporation and transportation loss in the lower division. They said, okay, we'll take that, but when it gets below 30%, then we'll take the 1.5 million and then the rest of the cuts down to 3.9 million will be split evenly between us and the upper basin. It's gonna take a pretty big lawsuit to make that come to pass. So that's kind of where the negotiation stands today. Right now, Bureau's acknowledging that this idea performs better over the long haul than this one. Okay, now on the messaging front, I think you guys remember last time that we talked about that Newsweek article and the $28.7 billion gallons of water that if we close the loophole of the Colorado, Free River Conditions Law would be saved. And, you know, we were kind of feeling a little bit back on our heels, like most of the messaging was in favor of the lower basin, right? At the messaging level, Amy will talk a little bit about it tonight. They're still a little bit keeping that close to their vest, and Jackie probably knows a lot more. But they are working on talking points for a media campaign, and they're gonna, you know, make that, I think a priority. So I felt good about that. At the negotiating level, there's a kind of an interesting proposal or idea about demonstrated demand. Go ahead.
Oh, just the messaging effort, the emphasis is on putting together these really interesting graphics, they're calling them infographics. Much like that one that you just saw, that, you know, Ted takes these really technical stories and tries to make them simple enough. Remember, the first one was the graph that just showed use in the upper basin and use in the lower basin. That's the main focus right now. In fact, they have one person that is dedicated to working on that philosophy. So you'll see more of that stuff in the near future. That's
Yeah. So, and I got a little bit out of sequence here because I really intend to talk about this, because this is a good segue into the natural curtailment discussion. So that, Amy will give us some hints about this tonight, but basically what they've done is they've taken an analysis of all demands in the upper division. Not necessarily whatever we peaked at, but what could be demonstrated to be a demand because of diversity across our basin. And compared that to the naturally occurring shortages that we experience in dry years, and make a proportional comparison of that to the planned cuts in the lower division. And actually, when you look at it that way, we're really not asking the lower division to take a greatly more proportional cut than we take every dry year. So it's kind of interesting, and Amy is gonna give us a little more on that. So,
we hope that you guys were okay with that, us kind of taking the initiative and trying to tell the story. Jeff did all the work on writing it up. But we kind of collaborated with some of our partners and talked about how important this message was. And Jeff did a great job, I thought, of putting it into a 500-word essay.
well, I'm Sally's ghostwriter. You guys probably saw that.
But I hope everybody was okay with that.
All right, so let's just talk real quick about that idea. Go ahead and hit the next one. So at the C9, Stephen, Ken, and I had a little hallway meeting with Amy and Becky because they wanted to kind of make us feel better about that messaging, and then we're not gonna keep getting clobbered. And one of the things that we talked about was maybe the idea of natural curtailment, maybe at the roundtable level, we should start trying to tell that story. And we had an article coming up for Community Ag Alliance, so we shifted from telling about some grant projects to trying to talk about this idea of natural curtailment. So it's a pretty big plank in the upper division's negotiating platform. And the question, I think, is sort of, in their proposal, right? When it's dry, we'll take a certain amount of the cuts, but after that, we want everybody to share the pain. And so the concept is kind of this, all the water that gets used from the Colorado in the lower division comes out of Powell to down to me. This is our reservoir, right? We have snowpack. We don't really have storage at any significant level above where we use the water. So, Becky, how does Becky say that? She says, we cannot use what doesn't exist. And she's just trying to say in dry years, we don't have, we just don't have the water. So we put together this article, go ahead, Sal. We put together this article, and it got published. Actually, there's two articles. Page down. There you go. There's this recent example, if you look at upper basin usage from 2016 to 2020, that averaged about 4.6 million acre feet. In the dry year, 2021, the next dry year, that fell to 3.5 million acre feet. You know, I can be petty. But just as a reminder, that 2021 year, when our usage fell from 4.6 to 3.8, theirs went from 10.7 to just over 11 million acre feet. But who's counting? Okay, so anyway, we want to sort of tell our story. By the way, the phrase natural curtailment is a Yampa White, that's Yampa White talk. They don't, at the DNR level, they don't use that specific phrase. I think it was either Tom Gray or Ken or me who first said the phrase natural curtailment. So I think we can safely eliminate me because that would be an original thought, and everyone knows I've never had one of those. But anyway, however it came about, we talk about that in terms of natural curtailment. We wrote a couple of articles. There's a long one and that I really like better than the short one. I'm the only one of everyone who's read the thing. Steve, Sally, Ken, they like the short one. I think the long one, it's just a couple hundred words more, but it tells a little bit better the story of how the compact got to be what it is. And also gets the 2020, post 2026 negotiations sort of in there. So anyway, then Alden added, it was written really from a Yampa Valley perspective, which was okay for the pilot, but he made the point that, you know, the White Rivers we're in with the White River as well. So we made some changes to that, and we've changed the short version. We need to make those same changes to the long version. I would like it if we can get the long version out to those publications like the Sun, like the Aspen paper that are more water centric and they published long articles, right? Really long ones. In fact, well, before we go there, so our idea, the long introduction to a discussion, sorry. Our idea is that in addition to sort of just telling what it is and why that's important, we would like to write a future article that is more personal. So can we find 3 or 4 or 5 people, irrigators, maybe somebody, some non-irrigation user.
White
Maybe
River as well as this basin.
yeah, I don't know, Ken, if you, I don't know, think of a recreational person who could tell the story that says, okay, this is how I operate when I have plenty, but when it's a dry year, this is what it means for me. This is how this is how my usage is reduced. And I think most of us agree that that might also be a good part of that, of telling that story. So,
You guys okay with that?
do you guys know anybody who you'd like to throw under the bus for that duty?
To write the article.
No, and they wouldn't, we would still be responsible for putting the article together. We just need some names
Band card would probably.
in our 2 basins of people we could talk to who would help us, who would tell their own personal story. This is how my operation changes in a dry year.
I mean, I'm just thinking of RPMs, those guys run out of water
Oh, gosh.
way early, and they have tons of water before they can use it. And then it's gone when they need it, so I'm sure some of those guys would be happy to visit.
If you could get us a name or 2 and a contact, that'd be great.
Mike Camblin changed his entire operation because of this.
Yeah,
So he would be. Someone,
Be a good board basin, and then we can get somebody up on the bear. Somebody up on the bear,
yeah.
or up Elk River somewhere.
but why not have a journalist write this? Like, why not give this to somebody to write?
Who can really write
Yeah,
besides me?
well, I mean, just, it's to save you time and have somebody dig
It would
into it.
definitely be better, Jackie. I'm speaking facetiously. That mother cost me. I
Oh,
used to
yeah.
be able to write stuff. That thing should have been a 4 or 5 hour effort. It was 4 or 5 days. I struggled and struggled to get words on the damn piece of paper.
Yeah,
So I think that would be fine to get, I don't know, do you have an idea of somebody that we could?
I mean, I think you could call, the water or the Colorado Education, Rico.
We go,
Rico, like
You could
Eugene
call-
Buchanan is in the valley, but.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Yep, you could do
and
it.
Eugene,
It's, yeah, been.
Jackie,
Shannon
do you have an
Lee with
idea?
the Colorado Sun, I mean, that's their water reporter.
Yeah.
And I know, I mean, Rachel's doing a pretty good job of writing for the fence folks. That's not necessarily the audience you're looking for, but she might help write something.
I think every audience is the audience we're looking for. Kelly. That's just my view. But I think having even the agricultural community go, oh, you know what? Yeah, that is us.
we have farmers
So-
and ranchers. The upper and lower basin, but it's the disconnect about, you know, that slide that Jeff showed about where our water comes from and where their water comes from. You know, we, instead of complaining that they don't understand our issue, we need to try to tell our story.
Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, if we're gonna try to tell a story, I'd sure like to see some data to back it,
Yes.
because most of the articles that I've read associated with what you sent out, they're all anecdotal. There's only one of them that actually referenced a research organization, and I went to their paper, and even that's anecdotal, there wasn't any actual measurements. It was assumption and presumptions and estimates. So if we're gonna pick somebody on the way or the anthem, I'd like to have somebody that's doing measurements. So we can add some legitimacy to it. The other thing about using journalistic talents is potential biases. So I would like to see data to back up whatever story we're telling.
Yeah.
And I think that,
And, you know, we had the whole measurement device,
Yeah.
District 6 thing. So, and we've always had moves. So, but I just don't, I would love to be able to tell that, but I don't think it's appropriate necessarily for me to be one of the ranchers who talks about how we shut down head
Yeah,
gates.
I want to
as
point
irrigation.
fingers at you. I was just saying in the bigger picture.
Doug Munger online hasn't, would like to.
Doug, I didn't know you were there, Doug.
Yeah, so real quickly, I got a couple points. So Heather Sackett, I'm telling you, she does work for the Aspen Journalism and Aspen, but she does a heck of a good job. She really researches her articles and does a great job on them, in my personal opinion. And so I don't know, maybe that would be somebody we could call as Aspen Journalism, and because she's been covering all of this stuff, you know, with the river district and all the way through all this stuff. So that would be my thought, number one. And number two, I have quite a few insights about, you know, not stock water and hauling water to our cows and the rest on water rights, and then our ditches not being able to get filled out right straight off the Yampa with the number 2 water right not getting water into our ditches, and whether we dry up the whole system, the whole river, to get water into our system. Our number 2 water right on the Walker Ditch is so I would be happy that we could have some for on the Walker Ditch. So anyhow, just a couple of comments, but I think Heather, if she would be interested in doing and turn her loose on this, I think she'd do a heck of a good job. Thank you.
So Doug, that's a really good point. I kind of meant to say that earlier. we're tributary irrigators, we're off Fish Creek, not the not famous Fish Creek. And we're tributary irrigators, but I think the natural curtailment problem is, there's people on the main stem that struggle with that, or that at least, are faced with it. So for me, it would be great to get both tributary and main stem, stories. Now, Ken, I'm looking at you again though, because it seems like the easiest, the low hanging fruit here are ag people with measuring devices. Right? It's pretty easy to get. But what about an environmental recreational story? Got it? Does that?
I think it matches right in there. Yeah, you could have, and remind me, is this for the steamboat pilot? Is this something that we're doing, or is this like global?
Statewide.
Statewide, okay.
We're
Yeah,
we're gonna try to use
He's
this as,
told, I've helped tell that story forever, as far as rec goes. When we don't have water, we have to pivot.
Yeah, and it's
That's
a pretty, to Doug's point of facts, I mean, Steamboat has very specific, the whole recreation industry and the ability to use the river has very specific metrics. And when we hit those, the river closes, period. So you might be in, one year you might be in business for 45 days, and the next year you might be in business for 10. And that makes a whole big difference.
Right, and
in
this
your business.
natural curtailment of rec is occurring on all rivers in Colorado. But we have a long story, so yeah, certainly be good. I don't know about environment. Are we seeing, we haven't seen fish kills, which would be a natural
Well,
curtailment.
but we've got the algae blooms.
And
Good point.
temperature.
Tim, you've got some ideas.
Yeah, I struggle with it a little bit because the whole argument on natural curtailment is we can't be asked to curtail more. When we curtail more, it stays in the river. So the river benefits if we're,
say it again.
if the river benefits if we're curtailing diversions. So it's a little bit different. I mean, yes, the river suffers when we're in drought conditions and lower water. But it's not in the same bucket as the discussion you're having about whether we should be curtailed by the compact as opposed to natural curtailment. So I think the environment and recreation are in a different bucket and don't fit in this story quite the same way. Because your argument is you can't be asked to reduce less.
Right.
The river gets what is left. It's not like the river is giving up water. Under natural curtailment, it's getting what's there. I mean, drought's an issue, yes.
So,
But that's a different.
Callie, go ahead.
well, so I know, I see what you're saying, but at the moment that you're asking them to curtail. However, again, we'll know soon on the return flow study. But if you curtail that flood irrigation, that environment is gonna be impacted this fall. Because of the amount of less water in the river for the fish, everything else, in the White River.
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, I see what you mean as far as at the moment, when you ask this irrigator, force this and this guy to curtail, it puts more water in the river right now, but boy, this fall, we'll pay for it.
Well, it depends with that curtailment.
No, I think it's a very valid point. We're short on time here and we don't want to cut into Peppo.
Right.
So that's something that we ought to give a thought to. But I do think if we can make a story that goes outside of just ag, just outside of irrigation, I think that's better. I think that's helpful. So I want to give you a little bit of background in case you have a conversation with somebody and they reference this point. In the summer, I had lunch with Tom the other day, Tom Gray. This article came out in July. He's still pissed off about it. He can barely speak about it. But there was a blog post, our friend Eric Kuhn and his co-author Jack Schmidt from University of Utah, maybe from Utah somewhere. They they made a blog post that said it's really not true that in fact, in dry years, some dry years, Upper Basin uses more. So Amy and I talked about that quite a bit, and actually, the main point they were making is that in that first dry year of a multi-year dry spell, in the first dry year, that Upper Basin actually uses more. And Bureau's records supposedly supported that. The truth is that there were some inaccuracies in that data, and the data that was released in June this year, Bureau kind of threw some of that up, basically refuted that, but Eric wouldn't give. So when the Bureau came back and said, well, based on, better measurements, based on better weather data, based on thinking about the Trans Mountain diversion problem in a more accurate way, really, it's true. Some years it's a lot, some years it's not as much, but in a dry year, the upper division uses less. He said, the data's really murky, it doesn't really tell that story clearly. And when the negotiations happen in the closed room, then it'll be at a more technical detailed level. So basically it was Eric saying, you're probably not smart enough to really understand this. When the kids get out of it and the adults meet in a room, they'll wrestle the thing down. Here's the thing. What he said in that article there's 2 points. First of all, just for your background on the TMD thing, because I did not understand this until Amy explained it to me. There are 2 ways of looking at Trans Mountain diversion consumptive use. From a perspective of what goes down the river to Lee Ferry, Arizona, once they take it out of our river, it's 100% consumptive, right? It's not coming back, it's gone. The way the Bureau accounts for it, a lot of those Trans Mountain diversions go from the Colorado River to a reservoir, and from the reservoir to a tunnel. Like take Windy Gap. Windy Gap is a good example up by Granby. So the Bureau doesn't account for that as consumptive use until it leaves that reservoir and goes to the tunnel. Now, some of the people who divert might delay, actually, they take the water out of the Colorado River when they have the right, but they may not take it from that next reservoir down to their reservoir on the other hill right then, right? There are often years when that's shifted. So they may be full, they may be making repairs in a reservoir. There are a lot of reasons why a diverter might not want to use that water that right then. And so that's one of the things that if you account as consumptive use, all Trans Mountain diversion when it comes out of the river, that gap is on average about 200,000 acre feet in the average dry year to the average wet year. The average wet year, the Upper Basin uses about 200,000 acre feet more than the average dry year. So if anybody ever brings this up for you and sort of challenges you, there's a lot going on there. But the main thing is the data got better. And if we really think of Trans Mountain diversions accurately from the perspective of consumptive use in terms of our compact obligation, that's really the deal. So I've used up 5 extra minutes here, sorry, but I wanted to be sure we got to that in case anybody ever throws that flag up and says, well, Eric says that's not really true. Natural curtailment doesn't really exist. It is true, it does exist. Okay, with that.
Do we have Jeff Rodriguez on?
We do.
Jeff, did you have anything you wanted to contribute?
I kind of missed the first part, which is probably, I came at the tail end, which is probably where I would contribute. So nothing to contribute on this stuff. This is way above my pay grade.
Thank you we'll save all your best comments for later.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you have any questions about what Ken talked about, the direction of the IBCC and stuff like that, here to support that, but I think I missed the bulk of it.
Would you like to hear just a little bit? Because everybody's aware now, I think that Russ Sands will effectively be gone from Colorado Water Conservation Board effective Friday. And so Jeff and Kat's gonna be the interim director. or section chief and here for a while. And the Water Conservation Board, as you know, uses a lot of succession planning. So if you have any questions of, you know, do you want to just make a statement about where you think things are going? I mean, you, obviously, it's a team of people. Is there anything that we would expect to have different, or do you guys feel like we're carrying on? No, didn't miss a step.
Yeah, you know, I think for those of you that don't know Kat Weissmiller, she's been the deputy section chief of water supply planning for as long as Russ has been the section chief, I'm pretty sure. I think that was one of his first hires. She has a ton of experience and, you know, has been working kind of in lockstep with Russ throughout the water plan update. And she doesn't make it to too many roundtable meetings. She does a lot of really good work kind of behind the scenes, moving things forward with the IBCC and just all the water plan actions and things like that. So in that sense, you know, I don't think too many things will change, at least in this interim period. You all know Russ, so those are kind of impossible shoes to fill, but I do think we have a pretty good plan moving forward. We've been able to kind of debrief with Russ over the last few weeks, trying to get all the stuff that's lives in Russ's head onto paper so that we can kind of really help realize the vision of the water plan. You know, a lot of that did live in Russ's head, and you know, we'll still be working really closely with the Brown and Caldwell staff to really working to strategize on, you know, how we complete all those 50 agency actions in the water plan. So I don't think much will change there. You know, Kat is a different person than Russ, so some of the process stuff might shift a little bit. I suspect Kat will be joining me at roundtable meetings. You know, obviously not next month. Most of them don't meet in December, but you know, come the new year, if we don't have a different section chief by that time, I'm not exactly sure what the process will be to, you know, make a permanent hire for that position. I suspect the agency will maybe move pretty quickly on that. I don't know what the process is going to be. I think we're all still kind of reeling from Russ's announcement that he's moving on, but I can assure you, you know, I think the goal is to keep the IBCC moving in the right direction. There's a lot of momentum there, and you know, we've had a chance to talk to Director Mitchell as well, and I think, you know, we have a pretty good plan to keep that momentum going. I think the IBCC is about as engaged as I've seen it in recent years. So certainly want to keep that moving forward with the Drought Resilience Action Plan, or, you know, we decided to change the name because Low Regrets 2.0 was kind of weird. So yeah, we're just calling it the Drought Resilience Action Plan right now. So yeah, keeping that moving forward, you know, goal is to still complete all 50 agency actions from the water plan. You know, so not much has changed from an agency perspective. But like I said, Russ leaves some pretty big shoes to fill. So it's going to take all of us on water supply planning to do that. And whoever is the new section chief is going to have a lot of work to do for sure.
Thanks, Jim.
All right. So we're gonna call it here, and hand the Zoom over to Beppo.
I think we have to stop this recording and start the new one, so thank you, everybody.